My name is Louis-Alexandre Bergeron. You can call me LA. I know it's a mouthful to say. So I'm the lead technical platform engineer at Triton Digital. So for those who don't know who Triton Digital is, we are the leading technology provider for the audio industry. So we serve thousands of businesses and customers, going from podcasters to broadcasters, audio services. We make sure we can grow their audience. We help them monetize their stream, monetize their content, and we measure all the audience that, all the listeners that they have on those content. What does it represent in numbers? So we deliver billion of ad impression every single month for all those medias. We deliver petabytes of data to the end listener, to the end users. But not only that, we measure every single session that is streamed through our platform. So we've been at it since 2006. We grew, went through mergers and acquisitions over the time, but in 2020, we signed our biggest customer yet, iHeart Media. And the partnership went so well that after a year, they acquired us. So they went from being our biggest customer to our mother house, our owning company. So that changed everything for us, because not only iHeart is a publicly traded company, but also they're the biggest competitor of every other customer that we have. And we needed and wanted to keep providing the service to our other customers without sharing data with their competitors. So all of a sudden, we were under the lens of SOX auditing. So I'm pretty sure everyone, each and every one of you, needs to pass those audits. You know how tedious they can be. But we needed to quickly turn around and make sure our change management process was up to the highest standard of SOX. We needed to make sure our access level were controlled. IT security needed to be at the top of its game. So we had an opportunity at that time. We needed to keep innovating, but within boundaries. So what I mean by that is, since we've been providing the services for more than 15 years, we had an aging infrastructure. So we were running on Mesos. Probably some of you remember the time where we were wondering, should we run our containers on Kubernetes versus Mesos? Well, we went the other way, so that was about to change. Also, we operate 24 data centers, so we have servers all across the planet, on-premise servers, that lack the flexibility of the cloud. So it's great for managing our cost, but when it comes to increasing capacity, it always required a bit of a head start, a bit of a planning to be able to achieve that. And finally, because we were on an aging technology or tech stack, we had to make sure that we acted before our security tenor lowered. So what's our vision for good platform engineering now that we had the opportunity to replace all our stack? So there are 4 pillars that we believe are extremely important to good platform. First one is clear boundaries and responsibilities. We want to know who owns which part of the system, but we don't want to create silos. We want to make sure there's collaboration between teams and they can learn from each other. Second, we needed self-service and automation. We want automation, of course, but not at the cost of developer experience. These tools, these methodologies need to be easy and fun to use. Third, we need a reliable system, and also a system that enables us to innovate fast within that reliability. And finally, we need the flexibility to manage our costs. Since we are running on-premise, which is great to know exactly how much our operations cost, if we were to go in a hybrid mode, we needed the levers to control that. So I'm going to walk you through 2 use cases that we implemented at Triton very successfully that shows those 4 pillars and how we leverage Ansible Automation Platform and OpenShift to achieve our goals. So I mentioned collaboration. As you can imagine, our first audit was disruptive. Let's just put it that way. There's a lot of reactive work that was thrown onto our product teams, which hindered their ability to deliver products during the audit. And we couldn't do another audit like that. We needed to bring a bit more agility to the process. So we made sure that the compliance team was part of our software development process. So as the product team and the asset owners were responsible for generating the audit, the audit reports, enforcing those rules, the rules themselves or the guidelines were coming from compliance. And we took the decision to make everything public within Triton Digital. And public, I mean internally public. So anyone from any team could submit a PR to any other teams or even the platform. How did we actually achieve it? Is we leverage Ansible automation platform. So as I mentioned, the developers or the system owners were responsible for generating all those audit reports. So as the platform team, we gave them the Ansible templates, the collection that they needed, all the tooling necessary, but we forced them to use Ansible for multiple reasons. The auditability of the solution, the RBAC system, so the role control of who can run, who can edit, execute those playbooks. And at the other end, the auditors, external as well as internal, had a menu that they could choose from. They could run the audit every single time they wanted to. So by giving them executioner role, they could audit any single system that would generate that report into a report central. And if something was not up to standard or they needed more functionalities or more data, they could just go in our development cycle, submit a change request or a feature request to the system owners, and that work would get prioritized just like any other feature that we develop at Triton. And just by adding that agility to our audit, it cut our duration by 70%, and we generated 60% fewer tickets on the teams, which gave them the time to actually work on their product and not necessarily on generating reports. We also leverage another tool or another technology, OpenShift, for fast innovation. And that's probably one of my favorite use case at Triton Digital, because we have, as we serve all the advertisement for the audio industry, we need to forecast the available inventory of all these ads on the content that is coming in the next few days. So advertisers can actually plan their campaign. They can decide what spots they will buy or they will bid on so that their ads will pass in the content. So you can imagine the complexity of running such a system. We have a third-party real-time database that makes those calculations. And back in the days when we deployed that, we took a third-party SaaS vendor. And it was working great at the beginning, but as the solution got more complex, it evolved, the costs started to rise. And the performance was underwhelming because we could only run that query once a day. So we wanted to offer better to our customers, and we thought, I don't think we're getting the bang for the buck in the solution. So our contract was coming up, and we gave ourselves a 4-month window to go from ideation to production. And this is where leveraging tools like OpenShift really, really helps. We know that using infrastructure as code is the best way to go. You're supposed to be able to redeploy quickly, but when you don't know if your solution will work, we want to have an extremely fast experimentation loop. And this is where, by leveraging the capabilities of advanced cluster management, we could deploy a cluster in AWS on the side dedicated to our experimentation. And by leveraging the operators inside OpenShift or Kubernetes, we deployed the same solution ourselves, brought some production traffic to it, and started experimenting with different hardware, different capacity, different network topologies. And when it failed, we just wiped everything and started again and again and again until we got the right recipe. At this point, when we knew that the solution would work, we could finally commit our manifest to our CI/CD pipeline and leverage our GoCD for the infrastructure as code, and then redeploy that solution in multiple environments, whether AWS, on-prem, wherever we liked. How did we do? We gave ourselves a 4-month window to complete that project. we were able to achieve production within 2 months. And not only that, we cut our costs by half while doing it. And on top of that, because we were able to experiment with different hardware, we increased the performance, so we could run the query 4 times a day instead of a single time a day. So that was a great improvement to our solution, thanks to the flexibility of AWS and the hybrid capabilities of OpenShift. But I mentioned earlier that we are running or operating 24 data centers. So we have the space to run this hardware. So we said, why not deploy it ourselves and bring it into our own data centers now that we know that the solution works, it's stable, and we can operate it. So we experimented again with different type of hardware to find the best sizing for a solution and ordered the hardware. AWS gave us the flexibility and the time to run the solution in production, and it gave us the time to deploy the cluster to move the workload afterward. When we were done, we moved everything back on premise, and we reduced our cost by an additional 70%. So we went from 100 to 50 to 15% of the initial cost, just because OpenShift enables us in an hybrid environment to move workload where it makes most sense. And that includes hardware costs, licenses, data center costs, and I didn't put salaries in there because our cloud engineers and infrastructure engineers are pretty much paid the same. So that's great. We got all these benefits from leveraging Ansible and OpenShift, but what else did we gain from that migration? First of all, we built a desirable tech environment. So by having the latest and greatest technology, methodologies, the developers were really thrilled to learn new tech and play with the new tools. Finally, there were no boundaries on what they could develop. There were a lot of career development or career advancement possibilities within the company. They could architect new solutions that they had no access to before. So overall, the employee satisfaction went up. Like, everyone wanted to contribute to that new platform. They wanted to deploy their service. We had to stop them because if they were coming all at the same time, we didn't have the capacity to absorb all the teams on a normal pace. And last but not least, our vendor management, or the relationship we had with our vendors, changed. So instead of having discussions about operations and how more of a certain service can I sell you, now we had the leverage to negotiate with them and move our workload where we wanted to. So they became partners of business development. They became our associates, helping us build better solutions, because they still wanted the part of that pie when we moved our workloads, but they offered us the new architectural capabilities by being completely hybrid. So we could experiment with multiple vendors. There were no limit to what we could attempt or try, just because we leverage OpenShift. So I hope those examples gave you ideas how Ansible and OpenShift can and will change your business. Thank you all for listening. Have a great summit.